Earlier this month, Saban has closed the gates on Power Rangers after being in charge of the brand for 25 years now, and has now passed the torch on to Hasbro. Yep, Hasbro no longer just owns the rights to the Power Rangers toy line, but the Power Rangers brand as a whole. Most fans rejoiced at this news like it was the death of Hitler, but to me it's a lot like losing an abusive family member. You're glad he or she is dead, but on the other hand you have to at least shed a tear since you had at least some kind of a connection to him or her. This makes a lot of fans, including myself, speculate on what Hasbro could bring to the table of the Power Rangers brand, as we are now on the line of entering a new era of Power Rangers. With the 25th anniversary coming up, now is an exciting time to be a Power Rangers fan. For the most part. The Boom Studios Shattered Grid event comic as a pseudo 25th anniversary event that reminds us other Power Rangers series exist besides MMPR, along with Power Rangers Hyperforce, a Power Rangers fan-made RPG that's light years better than any of the officially produced, currently airing Power Rangers series. Because of Hasbro now owning the Power Rangers brand, I've come up with 10, 5, 7 reasons I think Hasbro could save Power Rangers as we know it. Number 7. More Power Rangers movies. The 2017 movie was a success, with making $150 million at the box office. Now, I don't know much about the movie-making business, but I'm pretty sure that's enough to greenlight a sequel. But probably not enough for a 6-part series, though. When I saw that Tommy Oliver end credit scene, I thought there was going to be a sequel that was already planned, and that it was going to be a cinematic retelling of the Green with Evil saga, and then Tommy would eventually join the team in the 3rd act. I'm not here to talk about what I want to see in a Power Rangers sequel. WatchMojo already made a list about that. Check it out if you already haven't. It's a pretty good list. I just want to see more Power Rangers movies just like what Hasbro announced and planned to do. And yes, I am aware that as of now, the props and costumes are being auctioned off just after announcing more Power Rangers movies. Seriously, what the F, Hasbro? However, $150 million might be more than enough money to make new props and costumes, but then again, they wouldn't have enough money to make the actual movie. Yeah, I don't know why this is an entry on the list either. Number 6. Increasing the target demographic. When MMPR first debuted, it felt like kids in early middle school were at the top of the age demographic. Nowadays, it feels like Power Rangers is aiming itself at younger and younger kids as time goes on. Preschool age at the very least. It feels like Power Rangers is just hitting the restart button every time a new series debuts. To the writers of the current airing seasons, I would like to say, just because it worked in the 90s, doesn't mean it'll work in present day. Times have changed, and so have kid shows for that matter. There are certain things you can't get away with anymore. We live in an era where shows like Steven Universe and Star vs. the Forces of Evil are kid shows with intelligent writing and don't treat their audiences like morons while having very little merchandise to sell. With Hasbro, Power Rangers could be the same. Also, I would really like to see another Power Rangers show that's not a part of the main Power Rangers line, like an Akiba Ranger adaptation into a Power Rangers parody, or a darker and more mature take on Power Rangers aimed at teenagers and young adults. Think of it like a Riverdale version of Power Rangers. I don't want Power Rangers to keep having this moral of the day nonsense that feel like they're ripped out of an episode of Barney the Dinosaur until the end of time. Power Rangers should take itself seriously and be able to take risks just like any other show. Even if it is just a kid show, Power Rangers should go beyond its own limitations. And that leads me to my next entry. Number 5. Improving Power Rangers as a TV show. Like I said previously, I don't want Power Rangers to have this moral of the day nonsense forever. It feels like the ratings are constantly decreasing as time goes on, showing that not even kids are interested in the show anymore. In order for a show like Power Rangers to be successful, it needs to take risk and go beyond the status quo. I feel like that's what Saban wanted to do with Ninja Steel, but Nickelodeon was setting them back because if something of importance happens, they're going to get angry complaints from parents since little kids can't handle anything besides the flashy colors. To prove my point, let's go back to MMPR. I know MMPR was cheesy and even dated for the time, but it had a ton of moments in it that you wouldn't see in kid shows today. Seriously, I'm pretty sure the Megazords being destroyed at the beginning of Season 3 caused at least a few nightmares. Then there's series like In Space, Time Force, and RPM, which have a lot of darker and more mature elements thrown in to show that Power Rangers can be more than just a cheesy kids show. Even Dino Charge had at least some serious elements going for it. With Ninja Steel, it feels like an annoying sitcom you'd find on Nickelodeon or Disney Channel that happens to have the Power Rangers in it. Aside from two-part arcs, for lack of a better term, in the middle of the story, Ninja Steel is just piggybacking off of the Monster of the Week formula that MMPR started. Seriously, we didn't even get a season-ending two-parter. From what we've seen of Super Ninja Steel before the hiatus, it looks like they're finally taking a step in the right direction, especially considering the 25th anniversary special is coming up. However, for all we know, the 25th anniversary episode could just go back to the moral of the day nonsense nobody wants, even when we were teased this season was going to have a significant left turn because of this being the 25th anniversary season. Now that we have Hasbro, they could finally grow a pair and not let Nickelodeon set them back to make a good series. The Neo Saban era needs to be improved, and Hasbro can improve Power Rangers without being set back. Number 4. Improving Power Rangers as a toy line. Why did I put this above Power Rangers as a TV show? For the most part, Power Rangers as a show, like a lot of children's programming, is and always has been basically a 23-minute toy commercial. Since Hasbro is one of the most successful toy companies of all time, producing everything from Transformers to My Little Pony, I would definitely be interested in seeing how Hasbro would handle Power Rangers as a toy brand, from toys of the current airing show to the Legacy line. Most Power Rangers toys these days, meaning toys of the current airing show, to quote the Nostalgia Critic, painted different colors and given less options, to the point where they're basically watered-down versions of their Japanese counterparts. Like I said, Hasbro has proven themselves to be great toy manufacturers in the past, and this could be a great sign for Power Rangers. Also, I had this idea that instead of releasing everything at once, instead, much like Sentai and Kamen Rider, certain items can be released in waves one at a time. That way there's no rush for a consumer to get everything at once before it's out of stores, and we won't have the same things in stores 11 months at a time. As for the Legacy line, I don't want Hasbro just to continue where Saban left off. No, I want them to go where Saban was too afraid to go, by expanding upon the Legacy line and acknowledging other seasons exist. Yes, I know, we're starting to get Legacy Zeo stuff, but keep in mind, we started to get Zeo stuff a solid 5 years into the Legacy line, and come to think of it, we still don't have a Legacy Shogun Megazord. With Hasbro, I think it would be best if the Legacy line was focused on more than one season at a time. What I mean by this is instead of waiting for the next Legacy item for MMPR, or I guess now Zeo, we could get Legacy stuff for more than one season at a time. We could get Legacy Zeo stuff at the same time as Legacy Turbo and In Space stuff. I just think that would make the Legacy line a whole lot better, especially now that the Legacy line is now in the hands of a company that actually knows what they're doing. Number 3. No more skipping other Sentai. This one is kind of similar to the next entry on this list because they kind of tie together with each other. After Super Ninja Steel, a lot of fans were expecting an adaptation of either Zyuohger or Q-Ranger, but Hasbro threw a curveball by announcing an adaptation of Tokimei Sentai Go-Busters, a Sentai previously skipped over, into Power Rangers Beast Morphers. Confused the hell out of a lot of fans, myself included, as instead of adapting a more current Sentai, rather going back 7 years to adapt the first Sentai series that was ever skipped over in terms of adaptation. I like to think that since this will be Hasbro's first Power Rangers series, that this will be kind of a trial run for Hasbro to prove how they could make a Power Rangers series before continuing on with other Power Rangers series. Maybe we could get a Zyuohger adaptation as a semi-sequel to Beast Morphers in the same way Lost Galaxy was a semi-sequel to In Space. Sadly, this would mean no ToQger adaptation, but I'm willing enough to let that slide. Speaking of In Space, we could then get a Q-Ranger adaptation and have it be a In Space-like series. And even though it's still airing as the recording of this video, I think Lupin vs. Pat would make an interesting Power Rangers series, to say the least, as a Power Rangers series about two teams fighting each other is something that's never been attempted before. And I don't mean something like the Psycho Rangers or the A-Squad team, where there's an arc dedicated to the Rangers defeating another team of Rangers. I mean an entire series based around two teams fighting each other, each with their own established motivations, not just because one is good and the other is evil. Skipping Sentai needs to come to an end, especially when it comes to skipping better Sentai in favor of something more popular. I know ninjas are more popular than trains, but you're not even going to make your Rangers ninjas and have them do very little ninja stuff? In the future, I want to see every Sentai given a fair chance at adaptation, and all these super seasons just make me miss having one-season stories. And speaking of super seasons, number 2, no more super seasons or summer hiatuses. Yes, it's the elephant in the room. A lot of you guys watching probably expected this to be number 1, but I made it number 2 as a way of misdirection. When the Neo-Saban era first started, I never really liked then or now the concept of super seasons. I am so sick of spending 2 years with the same group of Rangers. It's like the makers of the show think that just because there's an extra word in there, suddenly it's completely different, when in actuality, it's the same crap as before. Then there's the summer hiatuses that are extremely irritating. If an episode ends on a cliffhanger before we go into the summer hiatus, I'm gonna forget about it when the hiatus is over. While Nickelodeon does do a good job advertising when the show is airing new episodes, however, they never advertise the show during the hiatus. Seriously, Nickelodeon, would it kill you to say something like, Power Rangers will return with new episodes coming this fall? Is that so hard? I think Hasbro can bring an end to this running trend that nobody likes or wanted. Like I said in the previous entry, I really want to go back to one-season stories. Personally, I think Hasbro is a big enough company to make this happen, even though Power Rangers will continue to run on Nickelodeon, so we'll probably keep getting these summer hiatuses and super seasons for the next 3 years at least. Unless Hasbro convinces Nickelodeon to give them more episodes per season to allow more single-season adaptations, but that's very unlikely. And the number 1 reason I think Hasbro could save Power Rangers as we know it, I know this is extremely unlikely, but personally, I think Hasbro owning the rights to Power Rangers could lead to Kamen Rider in the United States. I don't mean a one-and-done thing like Mask Rider or Dragon Knight. I mean adapting Kamen Rider and have it become a franchise just like Power Rangers. Just like in Japan, Power Rangers and a Kamen Rider adaptation airing side by side, ratings for Power Rangers could improve and will introduce kids to something different, but also similar to Power Rangers. And yes, I do know the one big problem with this possibility. Saban copyrighted the term Power Rider. However, all you butthurt commenters, you're forgetting 2 things. 1, did that lead to anything besides a rumored Decade adaptation just to be tied in with Power Rangers Samurai? And 2, Saban was the one that copyrighted the term Power Rider. Along with Hasbro now owning the rights to Power Rangers, they now own the copyrighted term Power Rider. And I know people in the comments are going to point this out too, on how that's probably not how that works, but for the sake of my fanboy speculations, I'm going to say that is how that works. Personally, I would like to see an adaptation of either Gaim or X-Aid, since those are the 2 most marketable seasons of Kamen Rider, or maybe they could adapt the current series, Kamen Rider Build, so Helmets and Henshin Network, Power Rider Fusion could become a real thing. Or maybe we can get an adaptation of Amazons aimed more towards adults. This is something a lot of people in the Toka community have been wanting to see for such a long time. I think since Hasbro is a bigger company than Saban, they could give us, the fans, something we've always wanted to see and never got to. Kids watching the show may think, hey, this is just a copy of Power Rangers. But over time, they could accept something similar in concept but different enough to be its own thing. Kids aren't that stupid, you know. I want Kamen Rider to be a franchise in the US just like Power Rangers. And Hasbro, being the company that they are, can and will give the Toka community something we've always wanted. Now I want to hear what you guys think. What would you like to see from Hasbro now that they own Power Rangers? Do you think Hasbro could change Power Rangers as we know it? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, as always, until next time, see ya.